Hello and welcome to Vikings Territory Breakdown podcast. I'm Joe Oberle, senior writer at VikingsTerritory.com, ProPTSD.com, and that's Mark Craig from senior writer and NFL writer and Vikings writer and writer from the Star Tribune and the StarTribune.com. Mark, we're back here to talk about those old Minnesota Vikings, and it's really interesting. Last year, every week, it seemed like they would do something even more amazing than the previous week. And just, you think it couldn't get more exciting to be a Vikings fan. Well, we get the complete opposite this year. Every week, they seem to do something even worse and make an even worse game. We've had the Bears game, and there was one a couple of weeks ago that I was apoplectic about. And now, their biggest rival coming to your stadium with the season on the line, and they just lay a complete egg that there's just really nothing. There's no joy in Mudville, and there was no joy at US Bank Stadium for Vikings fans. That was bad. 33-10 loss. That the only reason they got a touchdown is because they muffed a punt in their own end zone. It was bad from the get-go all the way through. What did you think of that one, Mark?
Well, it makes you feel any better. Last year's team lost 41-17 in Green Bay and 40-3 to the Cowboys. This is just it's not just the quarterback either. It's not.
No.
You wrote about turnovers for Sunday, and this has been a theme since less than 7 minutes into the season when little do we know, Ed Ingram reaches his arm back and knocks the ball out of Kirk's hand. 3 turnovers in that first half, the third one being Kirk throwing a ball at the end zone. So this is not just, if Kirk comes back, everything's going to be golden. This was their identity. Turnovers was their identity this year. And, it's doesn't help when you're, I think I called it, it was a desperate move to put Jaren Hall in there, but entirely and expected and legitimate to do that, because what Nick Mullins put up against Detroit wasn't. I don't think I can recall a quarterback who's been more careless with the ball than he was with Detroit. So, and Dobbs fell out of favor rapidly and became a third stringer. This was the move that they had. That was the logical move to make, and it didn't work out. And the Packers. And the bottom line is, it's still an emotional game, and the Packers wanted it more. And it felt like sitting in Green Bay there for a while, because it was a Packers party. It was that's not to lose your division to the Lions at home on Christmas Eve, the Packers to basically drum you out of the playoffs a week later on New Year's Eve. That's not acceptable. I don't care who's starting at quarterback. That performance that's going to leave a mark that these people need to correct.
There's no the champagne sellers in the Twin Cities were pleased. For 2 weeks in a row, someone was popping champagne at US Bank Stadium, and it wasn't from someone from Minnesota. Mark, what do you think of that move? Both you and I, for whatever, on whatever level, endorsed it last week to put the rookie Jaren Hall in. I wanted to go back and watch that one drive that he had earlier in the season, because I saw a poised quarterback then. Now, maybe that was scripted for him or something or whatever, but he seemed so much more confident then than he did now. But do you think, then he gets pulled at halftime because he turns the ball over, throws a bad interception, throws some terrible passes, loses a fumble. Do you think Kevin O'Connell mismanaged this decision? Because it seemed like, unless, I guess he did say after, he was always telling Nick Mullins, you might need to come back in. So,
yeah, like I said, it was a desperate move, but it was logical. Logical because it's a desperate situation. Mullins did not earn the right to step back on the field and have 52 guys follow him, because they wouldn't, what he did was, 411 yards, whatever, doesn't matter. The way that he put the ball just completely with just such a careless, approach. I would not have put him back out there. That's my opinion. That's an opinion of, I think, of just about everybody.
Yeah.
The sample size for Hall was, and the reason that I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, that I picked the Packers and won the series by, I've can rest the starters next week. But this is kind of what you expect. You expect the sample size in Atlanta was so small. It's 11 plays.
Yeah.
And the 11th play was him. Hats off to the kid for guts, but he got completely blown apart at the goal line, and his stay was done. So you can't really,
he didn't seem ready for prime time.
I don't think he was ready for it, but there wasn't a whole lot of other options, and it was good to see. It was good to kind of see. I wouldn't completely write him off and say that, that he's done and that you don't bring him back next year. But I think you also look at it as, hey, everything's on the table right now, including signing Kirk, don't sign Kirk, drafting a guy as a backup, drafting a guy and starting over. I think everything's on the table right now, but I don't think he mismanaged it. Things got blown apart so quickly at the end of that first half that it was the right time to go to Mullins.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it was his fumble, but Christian Darrisaw was a swinging gate on that play where, you got what, 26 seconds until halftime, and you're turning the ball over at your 33. And then your poor defense has just had to put up with so much of this crap for so long. And 2 plays later, it's 25-yard, touchdown where the guy's running past missed tackles and running over guys. And it was over. It was over. If it wasn't over before that, it's over at 23-3.
When Mullins is making 4 interceptions the previous game, or 4 interceptions the previous game, he's got his own turnover problems. I'm not sure in this game it would have made any difference if he starts, even though Jaren, now granted, if you get off to a better start and you put some pressure on the Packers, it's a different outcome. But they were ready for this game. They feasted on Jaren Hall. They feasted on Nick Mullins. They feasted on the Vikings defense, which we'll get to in the next segment. They figured it out. They knew exactly what to do there with the Vikings defense. So I'm not sure, Nick Mullins starting would have made much difference. The Vikings were undermanned. They had lost Hawkinson. They lost DJ Wanham coming into the game, who were both integral players for this team this year. So I think they're outmanned, outgunned. And like you pointed out, they had more emotion. They wanted it more. They were clawing their way up where the Vikings were just trying to hold on by their fingernails.
Yeah, and Mullins not only threw away the Lions game, he threw away the Bengals game.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of that first half in the Bengals game, there's a field goal right there. It's a game that they lose on a field goal in overtime, and one of them was in the red zone. He throws the ball away. The second one, he essentially hands it to the guy who's sacking him for an interception. When the sack, you still would have gotten a field goal. So yeah, it's him. The decision wasn't just based on him throwing away the Lions game. It was throwing away the Bengals game and the Lions game. And there's so many. Now the Packers game, that's not the case with the Packers game, but this slide that they had, losing 4 out of 5 before they played the Packers, they were all winnable. There were games where you could say, well, they didn't have Kirk, and we had these injuries and blah blah blah. But there still were points in that game where it was winnable. It was winnable with what they had, and they didn't rise to the challenge. It's not just we lost Kirk and everybody gets a free pass. That's not the case, at least not in my book.
Yeah, and you mentioned the operative word. There was a certain guy named Kirk who got on the Gallarhorn before the game without his shirt on, with the Kirko chains back around his neck. His son even helping him out there with no shirt on to blow the horn. That says so much, because that means he's still invested in this team, and maybe Coles is not going to be happy he wasn't wearing a Coles shirt up there, but that's beside the point. But the bottom line is they're going to have to they're going to have to sit down at the table and pay Kirk Cousins money, and he's going to be able to write his own ticket, because what he, while he looked like he wanted them to win in his stead, he every quarterback they threw out there just brought home the point that got to pay Kirk. And
yeah, but I think, and I've said before that it's obviously looking better for Kirk.
Yeah.
Each week is looking better for Kirk. It's looking better for Kirk. But, now that they've ended this season so tremendously horrible, it's, there's other things that they need that they also, I don't know how it all fits. And somebody I saw before, put it very well. It was like, there's a difference between a Kirk hater and a Kirk salary hater. What will it do to their ability to, in the past month, we've seen the Lions whoosh by them, obviously. The Packers whoosh by them, and the Bears are tied with them and will probably finish the year tied with the Vikings in the last place. But they're on the rise, and they just clinched the number one pick. They're rising, but they clinched the number one pick because they got Carolina's pick. And you could say that essentially DJ Moore was like a number one draft pick because they got him. He's got 90 some catches, 1,300 yards. So, bringing Kirk back, what's that going to do for you? Is it going to get you over the hump, or is it just going to be, well, we got no one else? That's what.
Are you advocating blowing it up?
No, I'm saying all options are on the table for me by how they finish this year, and just like do you pay Jefferson? Do you pay Daniil? I don't know the answer to these financial these questions, but if the answer is we got to let Daniil walk, we're not going to be able to fill holes, and we're just going to come back and have Kirk lead us, and cover up mistakes. He doesn't do that. It's been proven. He's like a thermometer and not a thermostat, I guess what he is what your team is. He can give you, you can compete with him, but when you look at the turnovers this year, they tied with the Browns as far as quarterbacks making turnovers, 26 turnovers by the quarterback. Now, granted, they're not all Kirk's fault, but they're not all Dobbs' fault. They're not all Mullins, and Mullins probably was all his fault, but not even Jaren Hall, not all his fault. But Kirk played 8 games, 4-4, as Kirk usually is, typically right around 500, and he had 9 turnovers. He had more than the other guys. And I'm not saying you just get rid of him, you don't even consider it, but I'm saying it can't just be an automatic, well, if we just had Kirk, we would have been all right. You could say he's playing at an MVP level, but I don't know too many MVPs that were 4-4 and had 9 turnovers in 8 games.
I might tell you, though, I think it's also the manner of those turnovers. Kirk lost some of those games early before the defense got its act together, and Kirk playing in some of these one-score games that were cost by turnovers later this season. I think he's making the plays to win some of those games. So I think you could have, if Kirk plays, you got 2 more wins on there that you didn't get.
You can't say that.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Either way.
I don't believe in saying anything. Well, you can just say, that he'd get 2 more wins or he'd be 2 more losses. No, he put up what he put up. He got hurt, and then that's all you can judge it by. That's all you can judge it by.
You can't judge it by him. Some of those losses were because he didn't have a defense behind him.
Okay, so in Atlanta, that first quarter and the first half against the Buccaneers, defense only gave up a field goal off those 3 turnovers. All right.
Yeah. That's a good point.
The defense, in the other ones, the defense.
Chargers game.
The Chargers, the Chargers defense. But the Chargers game, Kirk is at the worst turnover of the year.
Yep.
They are at the 6-yard line. Granted, we can say, well, how much of it was on Hawkinson for not catching the ball? It wasn't like just a perfect pass that was right here, that it was all on Hawkinson's fault. And this is where the Kirk and I'm not against Kirk. I'm not for Kirk. I'm just trying to be objective about Kirk. And this is the Kirk conundrum. It's it's the right guard's fault. It's, oh, the tight end didn't do this, or it just always seems to be, well, his numbers or his stats are really good, but it's just blah, 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 blah. And I'm saying I would put all options on the table. If it's going to cost me $50 million to bring him back at 36 with coming off an Achilles, no thank you.
Well, so all options on the table. One of those is finally abandon the competitive rebuild and blow it up and not pay Kirk. And you got to let Danielle Hunter go. You better sign Justin Jefferson just because he's such a transformational player. But he's not going to be happy if Kirk's gone. He wants him here. So there's so many. If they decide to go that route, it's something they can do. But they've got a lot of work to do. Do you think Kwesi's the man to get it done?
I don't think he's proven to be the guy that to build a team from the bottom up. I think he'd been as coach of the year, but what he was doing with Dobbs early on was impressive, and that was coach of the year material. But then it disappeared, and I think in part because I think O'Connell tried to fill him with too much, tried to do too much with him instead of letting him play, and then instead of putting some packages together where he could be a backup, and who would you rather have active, Dobbs or Lewis Seen or even Andrew Booth? You could look at the end of that Packers game as an example of, I'm not saying Kwesi should be fired or anything, but you look at the end of that Packers game and, Lewis Seen actually was active this week. He's on the field. Andrew Booth played the last handful of snaps because they just throwing people out there. These are guys that should be difference makers. And granted, Jordan Addison, good pick. And I still think that getting Dobbs and what he did for those 3 games, that was worth the 6th or 7th round pick or whatever it was. But I don't see some tremendous guy that's that's gonna do that. But I'm just saying all options are on the table. I'm not saying, well, if you get rid of Kirk or you decide not to sign Kirk, that you don't sign Danielle, you don't sign Justin Jefferson. And frankly, I guess I'll put on my old school hat and say, I'm not going to have my team. If I'm an owner or I'm a GM or I'm a coach, I'm not going to have my personnel decisions dictated to me by Justin Jefferson. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
So if it gets to where, and Justin Jefferson certainly proved last year in the summer where he didn't do the hold in, maybe he should have done his hold in. In hindsight, maybe it does him and the team better if he does his hold in. So they bring him back earlier so he doesn't have to spend 2 months with a hamstring, and he gets his money. He comes back, or however they work that. And that situation works differently if he's got his contract and he's taken care of, I think, just all the way around. And so, but if he can't accept what you're going to do, there'd be a lot I would trade it. Yeah. So I'd say everything is on the table of where the season went and how quickly it went and the holes that were exposed. Their offensive line is not set.
No.
Their running backs are not set. Defensive line not set. Linebackers not set. Marcus Davenport was a disaster. He's not coming back. DJ Wonham is a free agent. He's got an injury that could take up to close to a year or whatever to recover from. There's just massive holes everywhere, and just giving Kirk $40 million and giving Justin Jefferson $35 million, it's not going to get it done.
Yeah, well, with all due respect to your old school mentality, I share some of that, but I don't think it works anymore in this NFL. Justin Jefferson is going to voice his opinion. He already has, and you better listen because he sells tickets for you, Mark. You just can't let that guy go. And
winning would sell tickets for you. Winning would, and I'm just saying. I'm not advocating. I'm not advocating that certainly not advocating that they trade Justin Jefferson, but I'm saying if behind the scenes, when you got to have a plan, and they better figure it out. They better have been working on this.
They better start right now.
They should have started a long time ago. But if you're just going to muddle through, it's just not. It's not going to work. And winning is what will put if you can get just saying if Justin Jefferson say he just all of a sudden became like I'm not going to play if Kirk. I don't think he's. Certainly he would like to play with Kirk Cousins again because Kirk did have a connection with him, but it wasn't wasn't. There were times where he was frustrated with Kirk as well.
Of course.
And asking a guy a question in a podium setting where what do you think of this? Well, you're not going to get a lot of times 100% truth on things. So there were some frustrations with him and with Kirk. But I'm just saying, in this whole everything on the table, as you watch everyone else in the division gaining on you and going by you, and holy crap, it's not just us. And oh, geez, if we can just handle the Packers, the Lions aren't going anywhere with a 29-year-old quarterback and some excellent drafting. Packers, the Vikings should be. All teams should be kind of doing what the Packers do. And getting a quarterback and grooming him and bringing him along. Jordan Love, I'm not saying Jordan Love's a 10-year starter and going to be a Pro Bowl, all-pro guy, but I sure as hell would rather have their situation at quarterback going forward and trying to progress than to what are we going to do? We're going to get Kirk and then we're going to hope that Jaren Hall practices better. You got to have a plan here.
So what I'll say it one more time, and I know because I'm a big proponent of saying this is what the Vikings will do rather than what they should do, because I think they know more than I. What do you think they will do when with all things on the table? What's going to happen starting now? Because this is huge. I mean, you've laid it out very well that everything should be on the table, and there's not much that's really settled right now, and they are in more disarray. Last year might have been fool's gold, and now we're paying the piper this year because for a lack of depth or what have you. But what do you think they will do, Mark? What do you think will happen to this team? Will they blow it up? Will they sign these guys? Will they listen to Justin? Will they it might be one thing. I'm not saying to tell them what they should do. What do you think they will?
Well, that was the argument all last year. Is it fool's gold? Is it not fool's gold? And ultimately, it wasn't for us to yell and scream over each other. Not you and me, but just in general, the two sides. That's how things. People think things get decided now. It's just whoever yells the longest and screams the longest, or pounds the table long and wins while the other person walks away wins. But it was proven to be fool's gold because of about how the defense played against the Giants, how Kirk played at the end of the Giants game. Just it was they weren't up to those 13 wins. They didn't rise, and they had just beaten that team a month earlier, not even a month earlier. So yeah, there was some fool's gold till last year. As far as what will they do, I think that they'll re-sign Kirk. I don't see Kirk taking a 1-year deal. I don't see Kirk taking anything less than Daniel Jones, who's making $40 million a year. So you're looking at a 2-year, $80 million deal. I'm not only am I not a good NFL cap guy, I'm not a good media cap guy. So I'm just saying how I would if you can do that and put a team that's better than, the defense, we're going to rip the defense here in a minute and all that. And people are upset with the defense, but the defense played, whereas last year the defense underperformed, the defense this year overperformed, and they gave them everything they had. And if you can't get your defense or keep your defense at that level or add to it and do the Kirk deal and do Jefferson deal and all that, if all you're doing is you're going to have a good quarterback that's going to be, mopping up with great stats, then that's not going to work. But yeah, what they will do, I think they'll probably sign Kirk.
And if you sign Kirk, which I think they will do, I'd like to see it for 2 years, but they draft a quarterback of the future and groom him a little bit. I don't know. Trade up. Trade up
with what? Yeah,
future draft picks because they're going to suck for next. I don't know, Mark. That's what I'm hoping they will do.
That's what I'm saying. It's like if you want to hit a home run, again, it's giving up a lot to get up there. But they, yeah, you're right. To me, I mean, maybe Jaren Hall was that attempt this year. I don't go forward thinking that he's a quarterback of the future. I know it's a small sample size. Nick Mullins, I wouldn't even have put him. I wouldn't even have on the team next year
No.
because I don't think Nick would give you anything more than say Jaren would. So Nick to me is yes. I'm sorry, Nick. See you later. I don't know. It's
Well, I was going to say,
there has to be yes. Yeah, number one priority is to try and figure out who the quarterback of the future is.
if you sign Kirk, and which I like to see him do for a couple of years, and as I was saying, then that brings back Jefferson. So that to me is worthwhile because then you keep him happy, you bring him back, and you move forward. You probably got to say goodbye to Daniil, and then everything else is off the table. Then Brian Flores says, "Well, I'll see you later" because I don't have Daniil, but the dominoes fall anyway. With those thoughts in mind, let's take a quick break here and come back and talk about that defense, which is started out strong, poor, came on, got gangbusters, and just fizzled at the end this year. So there's plenty to talk about there. So come on back to Vikings Territory Breakdown. All right, folks, welcome back to Vikings Territory Breakdown with Mark Craig from the Star Tribune. Boy, as the season ends here and kind of fizzles to a finish, it's certainly different from last year. You wonder if you have anything to talk about, but it's never there's never a problem there. We'll have plenty to talk about, certainly with the quarterback position and Justin Jefferson, and then what to do on defense. The defense was like I was saying before, he started out poorly first few games, and they caught on to Brian Flores' system and played great. There was a stretch they were top 5 in the league for the way they were playing, going a number of quarters without giving up a touchdown. And then the last 3 games, it just went apart. And part of that is, getting injured at the cornerback position. Part of that is losing DJ Wanham this past week. Part of that is never getting Marcus Davenport on the field for more than 2 games this year. What a terrible pickup that has turned out to be. At the end of the season, you see your older players are just not sure. I hardly saw Harrison Smith, what maybe could have been his last home game for the Vikings. You like some of the things I liked what I see from Jordan Hicks. It was good to have him back on it. I thought Ivan Pace played well this year. Daniil Hunter had a great season, but you go back into the secondary and the reports, stock report is not up. So how do you assess the defense, Mark? What did you see? Well, I guess before you go that far, tell me how the Packers talk about how they just found a way to riddle them. I mean, Jordan Love was getting the ball out, and they were short passes in front of their zone defense. It was just, there was wide open receivers all day on Sunday.
Well, before I do that, okay. You mentioned Kirk, taking his shirt off and getting the crowd going crazy. Defense comes out. What happened? 3 and out.
Yep.
Defense forced 3 and out. Then what happened? Offense, 3 and out. And they have like a 3rd and 2. Darisaw gives up a whiff on a block. Jaren Hall gets hit. Ball goes incomplete to Johnny Munt, who's now your star tight end. All right. So 3 and out. That place was. I mean, when Kirk did that, and then after that 3 and out, that place was ready to explode. And it was, I don't want to say it's 50-50 Packers, but you probably could hear it on TV as well. That there were a lot of Packers cheering. Okay, so now that's back-to-back 3 and outs. Then what happens? So the defense holds in the red zone. It's a 3-0 game. So there's a hold in the red zone. Granted, Love overthrew or missed a wide open guy that would have been a touchdown, but it's because Jones and Daniil pressured. All right, so the defense is still doing pretty good. Then you get offense gets the ball back, trailing 3-0. What happens? he throws Johnny Munt comes across. He's supposed to sit down in the zone. He keeps drifting. Jaren Hall doesn't know where to throw it. He throws it sort of behind him. It goes off Munt's hands, intercepted. Okay, then it's at the 33. So you're giving the ball to them at the 33. So the defense can't be faulted entirely. There's a touchdown. It's 10-0. Okay, then the offense gets the ball back. They start off 1st and 5 with an encroachment penalty, and they still can't get a first down. They punt it up, and then before you know it, it's 17-3. It's the offense did it. Jaren Hall did not complete a pass until it was I don't know. I had that written down, but
he was well into the game. Yeah,
he doesn't complete a ball in the first quarter. His first completion is when they're already down 10-0. I'm going to say is the defense was not good, was not great, but they got zero help, and it's been a case so many times this year of where like they at Atlanta they give the ball up at the 1 yard line, 1st and goal. Atlanta has to kick a field goal. Denver. They get the ball 3 times, including 1 time at the Vikings 9 yard line after Dobbs gets his arm hit. 3 field goals. So you're talking about a defense, and also a defense that's on the field for over almost 38 minutes of a 60-minute game. That's number one. That's, to me, it's a defense that has just had to hold the house up, for so long that it's impossible to keep doing it. As far as some of the guys being open, it's the pressure. You mentioned Marcus Davenport, AWOL. He's gone. Wonham gets hurt. The pressure whenever they would, like, there was one, the 28-yard floater that went up in the air, and Bo Melton. We all got to know who Bo Melton was on. Whenever I was like, who's 80? I had no idea who 80 was. So you look it up. It's like, wow, okay. Guy with 5 career catches in 2 years, catches 6
superstar now,
and a touchdown. But that's Ivan Pace blitz. It's a blitz, and they pick it up. The pass rush was not effective, so that leaves. Brian Flores is a genius whenever his pressures are getting there, and he's, Byron Murphy's playing, and the pressure's on. And you can do that, but if you have to sell out to get there, there's going to be open guys in the middle. There's one, like that was the play where he's able to clear across the field. It's a slow developing play, and you're still able to get it there, and nobody's like there to knock it down because everyone's rushing, or they're, it's a man coverage, and that's the only guy over there. And there were some blown coverages there as well, like.
I thought some of it had to do with the Packers having seen the defense already once this season helped, and they got a decent coaching staff over there in Matt LaFleur. And so many times it was right early on, it was quick passes. Well, then they were pointing this out on the air. They're saying that at some point they said, okay, just got to buy a little more time. So you saw Jordan Love backpedaling, away from the pressure, just waiting that 3rd second, someone pops open underneath and he hits them, actually throwing off his back foot, or as they pointed out, with no feet on the ground from time to time. So, I mean, it sounded to me like they really outcoached our team, on both sides of the ball, because they knew how to beat this defense, and they knew how to befuddle Jaren Hall and the rest of the crew.
I'm sure that having played them once that did help, but and I think eventually all Packers quarterbacks have to have that throw where they're falling down and they're launching it. And this guy's he's got tremendous arm strength.
Which helps.
I don't know. Just if he's able to get them into the playoffs in his first year, which they should, all they have to do is beat. But we'll talk. I guess we'll talk about playoff scenarios here eventually. But they just have to beat the Bears. But the Bears have won 4 or 5 games. But some of it has to do with that. Other parts have to do with, I think, the defense did kind of wear down, because there was the one touchdown, I think, right before halftime, They do a motion to the left, and the guy comes free across the middle. There looks like Caleb Evans looks confused on who to take, the motion guy or Reed. And then Josh Metellus, for as good as Josh Metellus is, he's not a shutdown corner. He can play in the slot, but he's more of a physical guy, rush guy. But he's left in the middle there with Reed come flying across. And then that Reed's open there in the corner, catches that ball. The touchdown there was another touchdown where I think it might have been after the first turnover. I think Harrison Smith misses a tackle there.
Mm-hmm.
The corner coming loses track or loses the ability to keep up with. I think it was Reed, and then the guy just scores right away and runs over, I think, Metellus toward the goal line. So yeah, there was some of it's coaching, some of it was just, I think, wear and tear of a defense. And then the second half, I thought they played about as well as they could, given the fact they were on the field for so long.
Yeah.
And then the Packers, of course, throw that. We'll talk about with Booth, but they 3rd and 6. You're leading 33-10, and you're throwing a bomb. So that may come back in the rivalry at some point to bite him. O'Connell said he wasn't upset with it, but I don't think any coach wants that being done to him.
Before we get to that and talk about some of the other defenders, I mean, Mekhi Blackman was hurt, and at times apparently Cam Bynum playing some corner to help out this depleted unit. What's going on with Caleb Evans? He kind of regressed this year after, last year he was kind of injury riddled, but when he was on the field, he was making great plays, and he just was not the same player. Is he trying to protect himself because of all those concussions from last year, or what's up with him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. I doubt if he's on the field, he's, I don't know how you hide yourself from concussions, but he got benched. Was it the Bengals game?
Yeah, or last week. Last week he did.
Yeah. Okay. So he gets benched last week. They clearly did some motions that I think confused him maybe more. I'm just guessing, but seemed to confuse him more than others. But so much of what Flores was able to do that was successful was based on the rush. They did not. It's not like they had, whenever Murphy was in the game, it's not like they had Dion and Mel Blount, and they did not have a bunch of lockdown corners and Sauce Gardner. They just had they had some guys that the rush and cover has got to be, if it's not together, everybody gets embarrassed. You can say, well, the secondary did this or this or this, but if they're not, if there's a lot of time for them to throw, then
you're exactly right. I mean, you Wanham's out, and that means you don't have to worry about anybody else as much, and you can pay more attention to Neil Hunter and neutralize him. Yeah, the rush was not there. Jared Goff sat back there and like a statue and did what he wanted. And now Jordan Love did whatever he wanted back there, because generally they were not pressured. That's where it starts.
And I would say, the flip side of that we saw in week 2 was the rush couldn't get there because Justin Herbert was throwing it so quick.
Right.
His top receiver had, had like 17, 18 catches. He was like the second or third in NFL history. And a lot of that was not, wasn't the rush's fault, because they couldn't get there. It's impossible to get there. Your only hope is you put your arm up and knock a ball down. But there was, the coverage should have been tighter, and it wasn't. So, some of that early season stuff, and this is never going to change because they're not going to play in the preseason anymore. But I'd say the first, Philadelphia, the Chargers, some of those early games are the fact that, you can do all you want. You can do everything in OTAs. You can do things in the summer and have joint practices and pretend like that's some, gift from God when it comes to being prepared. But until you play at full speed, you're not going to be up to speed on his defense. So it took basically the first few weeks was preseason for their defense, but they're adding them up at that point. So yeah, it's I think the rush is what carried them, and now they just don't have it. They're down to and Pat Jones is a good backup rotational rusher, but so is DJ Wonham. He was a good I don't know what Za'Darius left for, and but if 13 million for Davenport or whatever Za'Darius was getting, I might have kept Za'Darius.
Oh, well, Zarius died and went to heaven. He's having a good season down in Cleveland. He's going to be playing in the playoffs and on a team that nobody wants to play. You brought it up earlier. Speaking of another cornerback, I didn't even know he was on the field. If he was, Andrew Booth Jr., but I saw him after the game when he was in a little scuffle with some practice player who wasn't even on the roster. Or I should say, on the game day roster, that they started. Throwing hands a little bit, and Aaron Jones steps in and walks right into a roundhouse from, I think, his teammate hit him in the face, and then they started, they said like, oh, he wanted to defuse the situation and kind of pushed Andrew Booth out of there. Then Pat Jones stepped in and said, okay, let's settle down, boys. But anyway, what did you hear about that afterwards? And what are your thoughts? And he kind of intimated a little bit.
I mean, Andrew Booth said, just trash talking back and forth. I have a feeling that it comes from that 3rd and 6 where they're throwing the ball 30, 40 yards downfield with a backup quarterback. And then you sort of see looking back at the game, you see the sideline with Jordan Love sort of laughing, and the Vikings got humiliated, and I'm sure that some of that carried over into the post game of you can say what you want about it. It's sort of Bush League. It's when you do that to someone in your division, it probably could come back to bite you. O'Connell really dismissed it and said, "Hey, we basically we need the practice on stuff like that, and we want to get guys in those kinds of plays." I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of what, just trash talking, and just and for it to be Andrew Booth, who's his career better take off soon, or he's already kind of he's trending heavily toward a pretty bad draft pick. It's not pretty. Wasn't pretty. When it was 30-3, I said, this rings a bell. I said, didn't Brad Childress get fired when it was 30-3 after a Packers game, but it was 31-3. So if Carlson makes that extra point, it would have been maybe KO gets fired. I don't know.
Oh no, it's too early for that. I'm sorry.
Joking.
Yeah, I don't agree with that yet. But anyway, on that note, we'll take another quick break. We'll come back and talk about a little bit more, clean up a few things, and maybe talk about them. I still got one more game we got to go through with the Lions, but with that Vikings 3% chance to make the playoffs. So come on back, and we'll talk about all that on Vikings Territory Breakdown. Okay, folks, welcome back to Vikings Territory Breakdown with Mark Craig from the Star Tribune. Some quick things to hit on here. Once again, another uneven day by Ryan Wright. He hits a booming 69-yard punt when they didn't need that long of a punt and puts it out of the end zone. He hits another one like 32 yards after that, which leaves the Vikings or the Packers at about the 32-yard line. So once again, I think he's got the potential to be a really good punter, but he did not do them many favors this year. I want to talk him and special teams. I should mention Najee Thompson, who was involved in a couple plays. One where he tried to not hit the punt returner and almost got flagged for it. They made the right call. And the other one, when he did, great timing and caused a fumble and made the recovery and led to the Vikings one touchdown in the game. So it was nice to see that. So what did you think of special teams real quick?
Yeah, Ryan Wright he's had the kind of season where after last year he seemed rock solid, and
yeah,
the year he's had this year, I'd be looking for a punter. I wouldn't just assume he's going to be my punter for next year.
Wow.
So you put the punter on the table too, I guess. When he had that 26, I think it was a 26-yard punt where it went off his, went out of bounds. Going back to the defense, that's when, the defense, I believe, they hold in downs in the red zone. So, there was a third and one where they did the tush push and they held up, and then fourth down was incomplete. But as far as Najee, there were two guys this summer. Whenever I really wanted to write about when I first started watching them was Ivan Pace just after watching him in practice, and Najee after the whole world kind of or all the Vikings had watched those preseason games early on, saw what Najee can do. Just breaking free, and his ability to run at top speed and time, his hits and everything is it's elite. I mean, and they've done away with the kickoff, so he's making this team basic on his ability in one specific play, and that's covering punts. Now he can do other things, and maybe his resume expands as he's if they have him do other things, but that's pretty important. We saw they picked up the flag on the one at the 12-yard line because the guy put his Najee was on top of him so quick that the punt returner was late, with the wave, and Najee blasted him. And then not only to and I think Collinsworth made reference to this too on the not only to make that hit right out in the fourth quarter, but to he immediately sprung to his feet and knew where the ball was and fell on it, beating the punt returner. So yeah, he's Najee is. I'm glad that there's still a place in the NFL as they're getting done with the kickoff. The Najee Thompsons of the world are going to disappear, but hopefully there's no way of getting rid of the punt return, the punts. So you see a guy like him be in the NFL and be a special teams player is it's fun to watch a guy like that.
It's quirk of the schedule. The Vikings played Detroit twice out of the last 3 games, and we know I'm pretty sure now that it's not going to be 3 out of the last 4 games to beat them in the playoffs. But it was set up, after as coming into that little run of 3 games to really have some drama here at the end of the season. But Nick Mullins doesn't lead Jefferson in the end zone, and they lose that one. And then they just fall on themselves and get totally outplayed this week. So that leaves us with another not very interesting game next week. And I can't see with Detroit probably looking at playing for I think they're playing for the number 2 spot yet. They still can gain that, so they have something to play for. I think the Vikings are in trouble going into Detroit this weekend and especially since the Lions got kind of screwed by the refs this weekend with that call where the extra point. Did you see that game where they went for 2 and the whole check-in? I mean, talk about the Lions and what you think.
Do you think if the Lions didn't have something to play with, that Dan Campbell would rest anyone? I don't. I mean, not only did they, they do that play, but whenever the penalty wipes it out and they're back, like on the 10-yard line or whatever, he's still going for the 2.
Which I don't agree with. He should have kicked it when it was 7 yards.
He should have kicked it. And then they got a penalty that moved him half the distance up forward, and he's still going for it. He probably should have done that. I think. But that's just who this guy is. I think Dak Prescott, he said, he goes, the man's crazy, but in a good way. It's like, and I mean, I was talking to Kevin.
To watch, but
no one knows NFL officials better than Kevin Seifert, and the work that he doesn't do it as much now because he's covering the Vikings, but he made a niche of just like reporting on officiating, and it's and he was talking to him, and you can see it too whenever you watch the replay and like who's going up to the official. The Lions were so cute when they were tried to be over cute on like who was going up to the official, like Taylor Decker. Like 3 tackles went up to the official, and they tried to make it look like that they all were reporting or that Dallas had to guess who was reporting. Well, they tried to fool the Cowboys, but they fooled the officials, is what it kind of looked like. And I have a hard time believing. I believe that the Lions, that the right guy reported, but I guess the lesson going forward is you better be clear to the official on who, be very clear. Don't send two more guys up to try and confuse the opponent. And I saw something someone wrote, and there's a bylaw that a commissioner can actually overturn a game if, like, in some extreme situations, which it's never been done before in the history of the NFL. And I said, oh my God, if we start doing that, I mean, it's already bad enough that we have to wait like 10 seconds after a big play to see if it counts. Can you imagine having to wait till like Tuesday afternoon to know if a team won or lost? Which kind of, that's the way the world goes now. But I don't see that ever happening. But I guess the lesson learned is if you just play it, don't try to confuse the other team, because you might confuse the officials as well.
I guess I'm glad to see that it doesn't look like that official group of officials is going to be doing much play in the playoffs. And I don't think they should, because that was egregious. You got to get that right. And that's such games on the line. You better be locked in a little bit too. I mean, it sounds like, when I was in high school, we ran a finesse offense where we were faking the ball to our fullback, who was really good at faking, and then pitching it around, and so successful. So many times our fullback would get tackled, without the ball. And so many times the refs were blowing it dead. I remember hearing our coaches were warming up against St. Bernard's, and he comes up and he's explaining to the ref, just like Dan Campbell did, this is the kind of offense we run. This is what's going to happen. This is what's been happening. Don't blow it dead until you make sure that he doesn't have the ball. Because sure enough, in that game, happened. Fake up the middle and pitch around, and the guy's going for a 70-yard touchdown, called back. I can't believe how frustrated Dan Campbell must have been, because he went up and explained ahead of time, this is what's going to happen. And on this level, they should not make that mistake. He's telling them the situation, what he's going to do, and then they still blow it.
Yeah. I mean, if you believe it, yeah, I believe that he did that. That's
yeah. Anyway,
it's unfortunate. I mean, it's a hard game to officiate.
Yes,
but I feel like the fact that there's always, and this maybe doesn't pertain to this play, but the fact that there's someone watching over them might in the league office and all this, it ultimately, maybe it gets more plays right, but it also lends itself to what we've seen all season long, where they let a play out, and the whole team runs down to the end zone, and they celebrate it, and we all know where it's going. We know it's not going to hold up. We know, in real time, that what's probably happened. It's coming back. But I just wonder if these officials just, they got so much in their heads as far as, do I let it play out? Do I do this? Do I do that? As opposed to just officiating the game and doing the best they can.
Yeah, but 2-point conversion with the game on the line, a team going for it. Got to get dialed in there, ref. He looked like he just kind of go, yeah, you're eligible. You ain't getting nothing. It goes on. It's like, He's thinking about his post-game beer, Mark. I don't know. I was pretty lame. I'm not a big supporter of the Lions over time, but they deserve the way they're playing to get the benefit of the doubt on something like that. And I'm always happy to see the Cowboys lose, and unfortunately they should have but didn't. But that's beside the point. Ravens are looking pretty good after 2 weeks ago beating the Niners, who came bounce back last week. The Ravens look like the team to beat right now in the NFL. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I picked against them this week, or not that means anything. My picks have been horrible, but my reasoning was they have been anointed as the team to beat, and as soon as you get that crown, you get beat. Not only did they not get beat, they put up 56 points.
So against Miami, was
Miami, and a big showdown with Miami. They put up 56 points. Lamar Jackson has a perfect passer rating. It looks like Lamar, you hate to just always hand it to the quarterback. Whoever is the best team with the best quarterback gets it or whatever. But, man, he looks like the MVP right now.
Yeah, it sure does. Does Cleveland have enough to stand up to him? I'm still going to say I don't think anybody wants to play Cleveland in the AFC in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, Cleveland, you would think if it shakes out the way it looks, that their first game is going to Jacksonville as the 5 seed playing the 4. And crazy
I
thing.
would say they're the number 2 team.
They've already won. They've already beaten Jacksonville. Jacksonville's kind of slumping, although they won 26-0 on Sunday, and they've already won there. And the Vikings or the Browns have the defense to take care of them, but there's a lot of scar tissue with Browns as in addition to Vikings. It's what should happen. Just like the Giants coming back to Minneapolis last year. You figure out, even though it was a 61-yard field goal that beat them on Christmas Eve, you feel like, okay, this is not a bad matchup for them to have, but things happen.
Oh, speaking of scar tissue, I think of your brother. I wish he was around to see the Brownies this year, because they to me, they look so tough. They seem to be very confident. They're come behind Flacco, and Flacco's going to be a great story if they keep winning. Brownies are going to be fun to watch here in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Flacco's playing with a guy that's playing with house money. He's so loose that it's just playing free, just free and easy, and he's making turnover. It's the Vikings still, and I guess technically they still have a chance, but the Browns were the first team to make the playoffs with 4 quarterbacks starting multiple games. Jaren Hall starting his second game on Sunday made the Vikings could have been and still be the second team to do that. And the turnovers, the Browns have more turnovers than anybody in the league at 35, 26 by their quarterback. The Vikings have 32 turnovers, 26 by their quarterback. People say, well, then the defenses are a little different, but the Vikings heading into that game on Sunday were I think number 10 in points allowed. The Browns were number 12. Now, granted, there can be some outlier games in there, here and there, but what I'm trying to say is that the Vikings don't just get a pass because they lost Kirk. There were games that was there. It was there for the taking, and they didn't seize it.
You want to go with this again? You were already trending on the Viking subreddit with these comments, and now you're going to get blasted again for bringing up this comparison.
I didn't even know what that was when you texted me.
Yeah, my son pointed it out to me. He says, "Hey, your buddy on the breakdown is getting. He's the number 1 guy on Viking subreddit. It's Reddit is you know what Reddit is, and it's the Vikings area."
I really didn't know that until you pointed it out. But
yeah, pretty classic.
How I do, Joe.
You're old school. What's going on with Philadelphia?
They were winning some close games early, I think.
They're not now.
When you look at the Vikings scenarios, what has to happen, which you still haven't, as a Vikings fan, you should know what your scenarios are, right? They need the Packers to lose at home to the Bears. They need Seattle to lose at Arizona, and then they need either Tampa Bay to lose at Carolina or New Orleans to lose at Atlanta or at home to Atlanta.
Yes.
So the Bears have won 4 or 5, so they could beat the Packers, right?
Yep.
Seattle, Arizona just beat the Eagles.
Yes.
And so they could beat Philadelphia, right? And Tampa Bay probably wins at Carolina, but New Orleans lost to Atlanta just like 4 weeks ago. So all that could happen, Joe. But probably the one thing that's the longest shot is the Vikings beating the Lions. So
you're not putting yourself on Viking subreddit there, buddy boy. You're not helping.
Saying that Arizona beating Philly. Was it at Arizona? I forget where it was. At Arizona.
I think it was at Arizona. I think so.
But it shouldn't matter. But Arizona is always they snuck up and beat the Cowboys when they were on top of the world and
with Josh Dobbs. Yeah.
So yeah, it's still a league where, I mean, anything can happen. But I mean, the Vikings, the fact that they cannot, their offensive line is not forceful enough to have a running game to put together for consistency for a backup quarterback. That's where the Browns separate themselves from the Vikings. It's not I don't think it's as much the defense, although the defense is fantastic in Cleveland. It's that ability to line up when it's 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 3 and just hand off and get your first. The willingness to do it from picking the players to calling the plays to actually executing is light years ahead in Cleveland as opposed to here. And that's one of the biggest problems is they're not a forceful offensive line, and they have to like try and trick and out scheme and do all this stuff, and you can't do it consistently.
Wow, look at that. We're way over time, so I guess we don't have time to talk about the prediction segment this week. There's nothing really new. No. We got to give Mark his due. He finally broke through. He picked the Vikings. I thought you might or you picked the Packers last week. I thought you might pick the Vikings because they're the home team, and I was going to pick the Packers. And
way past that.
I really felt that the Vikings were going to be in trouble. I didn't think it would be that bad, but so it was. But Mark is 2-1 with the 1 game left, so he's got the 2-game lead. And I'll pay your beer just as soon as I get mine from last year.
That's right. In the virtual world, I saw you one time since last year. So yeah, I guess we're even. The rubber matches next year. Right?
No, we've got to pay those up. That's the whole point. So congrats to you, Mark, for that. I'm gonna pick the Lions next week anyway, just for the heck of it. And you know what we should do is just for the fun of it, we should pick this game, Vikings Lions. And
I'm good.
You're good.
I'm good on that. This is a victory for me. If you want to do something else, you can.
I was going to say, so you could then pick the Vikings, lose, and then we could pick the Browns game. We could pick the Browns game as a tiebreaker. No interest in that.
Okay. You've been looking at my picks in the paper, saying, "How'd I lose to this clown?" No, I wouldn't pick the Vikings just as a joke. I mean, to me, I've like my same reason as last week. Until the quarterback starts throwing it to the right team, I wouldn't pick it. I don't feel that. I feel that we've been talking about it. I mean, Kirk Cousins talked about not turning the ball over, couldn't do it. Dobbs, same thing. Mullins, same thing. Jaren Hall, same thing. This is who they are. This is their. They're going to go to their 2023 resting place as a team that couldn't execute with the quarterback play, especially the backups.
Yeah, well, that about wraps it up. That sums it up. The Viking season.
Cheery ending, huh?
Pardon me.
Real cheery ending. We both picked Detroit.
Yeah, what are you going to do? They have a 3% chance to make the playoffs, and I'm just not seeing it. I'm not cheering for the Vikings to lose, but if they do, it's not going to bother me because maybe it'll improve their draft position. At this point, that's what they got to be looking towards. Like we said, they should be working on that already. That should do it this week for Vikings Territory Breakdown. Thanks, Mark. Congratulations on your win. As old Granny Hawkins says, you can pay you when I see you again, Josie Wales. And until next week, we'll be back again next week to talk about the Packers. No, we're done with the Packers.
The Packers in the playoffs?
Gosh, somehow that's got to not happen, but it probably will. When you go, depending on the Bears to help you out, you might be in trouble. But thanks, Mark. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks, Mike Walden behind the scenes. Thanks, Joe Johnson, and we'll be back next week and we'll talk it all over again. So come on back and we'll see you then. Until then, Skol.
Skol.